Okay, continuing with mycelia. Mycelia have a large surface area to volume ratio. So when we looked at plants, we did discuss the surface area to volume ratio. So, so when something has a higher surface area to volume ratio, it makes it more efficient at absorbing things, right? So because mycelia are made of branching networks of very thin hyphae, the fungi have the highest surface area to volume ratio of all multicellular organisms. And this makes nutrient absorption very efficient. Okay? And that's important because that's how fungi, uh, that's how they function. They absorb nutrients from other organisms. But this comes at a cost. So because it is efficient, it has a high surface area to volume ratio, it also makes it prone to drying out. And that's why um, fungi are most abundant in moist environments. And sort of and so to prevent or sort of an adaptation to drying out, fungi use reproductive spores that are resistant to drying out. So that allows them to reproduce, and the spore can go um, long periods without drying out, okay, before they germinate. So mycelia are an adaptation that supports external digestion and the absorptive lifestyle of fungi, but the fungi also produce dense, freshly reproductive structures. So these would be the fruiting bodies that a lot of you would be familiar with. So like the mushrooms or truffles, those are the fruiting bodies, which are reproductive structures of fungi. And those are the ones that occur um, sort of above ground. So many species of fungi do not reproduce sexually. In those lineages, important morphological differences are seen. So there's four types of reproductive structures in sexually reproducing fungi. There's the swimming gametes and spores. So these are sexually produced gametes and asexually produced spores of chytrids, which have flagella. And these are the only known multifungal cells. And actually, the flagella of those chytrids are very similar to the flagella of sperm. And then there's the zygosporangia. These are distinctive spore-producing structures of the zygomycetes or zygomycota. Okay? And they're formed from the fusion of cells from joined together haploid hyphae from two individuals. So this was the reproductive cycle that we looked at in lab. Zygomycetes is sort of the, it's another way to refer to zygomycota. So here you can see the swimming gametes and spores with the flagella. As you can see, it looks very similar to the flagella in sperm. Uh, then you have the zygosporangia. So this is the spore-producing structures formed when the hyphae are yoked. Yoked just means pulled together, joined together. So you have two distinct hyphae, or so one hypha here, one hypha there, and they join together to form the zygosporangium. Then we have the basidia, which is from the Basidiomycetes. That's known as the club fungi. This is also known as Basidiomycota. So these have specialized club-like cells at the ends of the hyphae, and each of the basidium produces 4 spores. Then there's the asci from Ascomycetes or Ascomycota, which are known as the sac fungi. So these form the asci, which are reproductive sac-like cells at the ends of the hyphae. And so each ascus will produce 8 spores. Okay, so here you have the hyphae or hypha for singular, with the basidium at the very tip. So they do kind of have like a club shape to them. Okay. So this is from Basidiomycota. And this is from Ascomycota, where you have the hypha and the ascus with those 8 spores within them. So many fungi use asexual reproduction as well as sexual reproduction. They produce asexual spores called conidia. The conidia can be dispersed by water, wind currents, and they can grow into new hyphae when the conditions are right. Okay, so here you can see the conidia, which would find in something like blue cheese or rotting cheese. Okay. So evaluating the molecular phylogenies, genomic sequencing has been used to place fungi on the tree of life, and the phylogenetic position of fungi is now well established. Okay. But the positions of the lineages within fungi are still being researched. So fungi are much more closely related to animals than they are to land plants. And so fungal infections in humans are a lot more difficult to treat than bacterial infections because drugs that would disrupt the fungal physiology would also likely disrupt the human physiology. The key traits that link animals and fungi are DNA sequence data. Also, both animals and fungi synthesize chitin, which is a polysaccharide, and the flagella and chytrid spores and gametes are similar to animal flagella. And animals and fungi store glucose as a polysaccharide, glycogen, whereas whereas plants use starch as their storage product. Okay, so here you can see the phylogenetic tree that shows a relationship between fungi and animals. And as you can see, they're more closely related to one another than fungi are to green plants, which are down here. So here they're just showing the common ancestor of fungi and animals. Okay, so this is a good place to stop. So the the quiz that is coming up will include chapter 34, which is the plant form and function, and also uh, the fungi chapter, which is chapter 29, up to this point. Okay, so this will be part of your quiz that's coming up.